This is the schedule for classes this week. Please remember that Matt Hargraves of Utah Farm Bureau will be in class on Wednesday to discuss his career and his role as Vice President of Communications and editor of Utah Farm Bureau News. You will write a speaker reflection paper about his presentation, the same as you did with Lynette Harris of the Utah Agricultural Experiment Station. On Friday, please bring a digital camera or your cell phone's camera to practice taking photos of objects in and around the ASTE building. You must submit 2 photos that use techniques discussed in today's lecture. Send those photos as attachments in an email through Canvas inbox by Monday, October 10th at 9:30 a.m. to receive credit for Friday's activity. On October 10th, you will receive participation points for writing a photo caption and submitting it for credit by the end of class. To help you prepare for the Ethics in Agricultural Photography and Images lecture, you have 2 reading assignments to accomplish. I have the Legal and Ethical Practices paper available for you to access in the module. And these are the 3 discussion questions we will address. They are also available in Canvas. This is your second reading assignment about photo captions. This reading assignment will help you in completing the in-class activity on writing a photo caption. So be prepared to talk about what is a photo caption, why are photo captions needed, and what information is included in a photo caption. A photo is worth 1,000 words. That may very well be true. Seeing an image of an event can be more exciting than reading about it in a news story, because it seems that almost everyone has access to a digital camera, either with an actual digital camera or with a cell phone that takes pictures, just so everyone thinks they are photographic experts. Simply owning a camera, however, does not make someone an expert. It takes practice to be able to take photographs that tell great stories. This lesson will introduce you to some of the basics of digital photography. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to recall what are the elements of good photographs. The reading assigned for this lesson provides tips for taking 3 types of photos: news and feature photos, people photos, and animal photos. Perhaps the most well-known principle of photographic composition is the rule of thirds. The basic principle behind the rule of thirds is to imagine dividing an image into thirds horizontally and vertically so that you have 9 parts. Position the main subject elements where the dividing line intersects. This means not placing your subject right in the center of the frame. For example, frame the shot so that the subjects in the upper right or left corners or the lower right and left corners instead of directly in the center of the picture. As you can see in the image in this slide, the windmill is positioned to follow the rule of thirds. Photographs not taken with the rule of thirds in mind can be edited later to crop or reframe the image so it does fit the rule. One of the best ways to create interest in your photographs is to vary the angles while framing the shot well. An unusual angle or viewpoint can add a great deal of interest to an ordinary object. Camera angle refers to the different angles at which you can hold a camera in reference to the object of interest. Use your imagination to find different angles or perspectives for your photographs. You might try lying down or crouching in front of the object, climbing above it, or putting the camera on the ground. Without lines, there can be no shape. Without shape, there can be no form. Without form, there can be no texture, and there can be no pattern. Using lines can be an effective way of drawing the viewer's eye into the focal point of an image. Lines can be vertical, horizontal, diagonal, or curved. Lines can be short or tall, can be thick or thin. Lines can lead you away or move you forward in an image. Thin lines can be experienced by some as unstable and by others as vulnerable. Thick lines can be experienced as rigid and dependent, or can be experienced as dominating and stern. Curved lines are often perceived as soft, soothing, settling, and relaxing. Jagged lines can be perceived as forceful, chaotic, sharp, and threatening. Vertical lines in a photograph tend to convey different moods, ranging from power and strength to growth. Vertical lines can include strands of hair, poles, trees, buildings, and a lot of other different objects that expand vertically rather than horizontally. Now, horizontal lines can include horizons, seas, laying people, street sides, and almost anything that expands horizontally. Diagonal lines work well to guide the viewer's attention toward a main subject of a photo. They can convey a sense of action and render photos as dynamic and interesting. Diagonal lines can be the shape of a path, a line of trees, a fence, river, or any other component of an image. This is an example of how trees have been shot at an angle so that the vertical lines take you up toward the sky. And in here, the diagonal line shows you how the light from the basilica in Italy is coming down and shining on the floor in front of the beautiful altar. I want to tell you the difference between two types of lighting to be on the lookout for and some examples in which they can happen in nature or your everyday life. Hard light versus soft light. Hard light comes from a light source that is relatively small compared to the subject. It creates strong, defining shadows. For example, hard light is cast by the sun when it's high in the sky on a cloudless day. Now, soft light is light that creates shadows with a gradual transition from light to dark. There are no hard shadow lines. Soft line is the most flattering type of light for portraits. When hard light will highlight blemishes and texture of the skin, soft light can help to smooth problem skin in photos. The aperture or f-stop and the distance from the subject to the camera can affect how you control the depth of field of your images. Now, I want to correct an error in your reading. A shallow depth of field, that means it's short or narrow, makes your background out of focus and allows the subject to stand out. A deep or long depth of field creates a sharper, crisp background. So the closer your subject is to the camera, the shallower your depth of field becomes. Therefore, moving further away from your subject will deepen your depth of field. Even with a point and shoot camera, there are ways to control your depth of field. In the Scene Modes menu, look for a symbol of a human head, which is the setting for portraits. This will give you a narrow depth of field. In the same menu, there's also a mountain symbol, which is a setting for landscapes, which will give you a deeper depth of field. The most important thing to keep in mind with shape is the essential element in an image is that it is the best defined when the subject is front-lit or backlit. For that shape to be successfully identifiable, it needs to be in strong contrast with its surroundings, so that it is detached from the clutter around it. Shapes and images can also be seen as silhouettes. So in general, the best hours to take a picture are just after sunrise or within an hour of sunset. This is often called the golden hour because of the soft and warm light the sun gives off during this time. Clouds or stormy weather can provide a challenge, but they can also create beautiful dynamic lighting with plenty of depth and interest. Often, the time right before or after a storm can give you amazing light. Avoid taking photos in the midday hours. The light given off by the midday sun is harsh, flat, and altogether unflattering for most every subject matter. If you know you're going to be taking a photo, plan around the time that it will give you the best light. After all, light is paramount for a good photo. No amount of Photoshop editing can add good lighting or take away bad lighting. Simply put, photographs must be taken in good lighting. And you can create shape by using black lighting, as you would see in a lot of silhouettes, as in this photo here of the windmill, or side lighting that just has a very simple background, but the light is coming from a right or left angle that's just really beautiful and strikes right onto the main focal point of the image. Life is full of patterns. Two techniques come into practice while working with patterns. You can emphasize the pattern or you can break it. Emphasizing a pattern can accentuate a sense of size and expansion. The idea is to zoom in onto the pattern and fill the frame with it. Emphasized pattern can include faces amongst the crowd, aligned plants, or bricks on a wall. Breaking a pattern is all about finding an object that disrupts the continuous flow of a pattern. It can be an object that is in clear contrast to the rest of the objects, be it in shape, color, texture. You might need to handle your composition with extra care while trying to render a broken pattern, and the rule of thirds can come in handy with such situations. For example, you could place your odd object along one of the thirds or on one of their intersecting points, and you can also play with your depth of field. Have the contrasting item in sharp focus and the items around it fading slowly into the out of focus. Broken patterns can be found naturally, or in some situations can be manipulated to disrupt readily existing patterns. And I always scan the background of your shots before taking a shot. Look for colors that don't fit with the rest of the image, bright patches that might distract the eye, lines that clash, people that don't belong. Quite often, asking a portrait subject to take a step to the left or the right will fix either putting the distraction behind them or putting it out of the frame. If you have distracting elements in the background of a shot, but you can't move your subject, another strategy is to move yourself and shoot from a new angle. This might mean rotating around your subject, but it could also include getting down low to make the sky the background, or even getting up high and shooting down onto the subject to make the background the ground. Placing your subject a long way in front of other objects will also help to make those objects more blurry. For example, if you have a choice between shooting your subject standing right in front of a brick wall or standing in front of an open field, the open field shot will have much more blurred background simply because the brick wall is just centimeters away from your subject and inside that focal range, whereas the open field stretches off into the distance where everything can be out of focus. One of the most effective ways of removing distractions from backgrounds is to remove the background altogether by totally filling the frame with your subject. Get up close or use your zoom lens to tightly frame the shot. You'll not only remove distractions, but you could end up with a high impact shot as well. Now that we've walked through some of the major elements of good photographs, it's time for you to check your learning by taking this quiz on Canvas. You have a 10-point quiz to assess your learning. The quiz is made up of multiple choice and short answer questions. Each quiz is worth 1 point. You have until Wednesday, October 5th at 9:30 in the morning to watch the lecture and take that quiz. You'll have all of your multiple choice questions graded instantly so you can see your answers, and I've provided some feedback for the open-ended questions to see what I was looking for. You can find that quiz under quiz in the navigation bar, and then the quiz is titled Agricultural Photography. And if you want, the hyperlink in this slide takes you directly there.